wanted to start the story on one of the foolish things from my youth. I mean, it's just one of hundreds. But when I first was out helping my grandfather and that, I was riding on the tractor. I wasn't driving it and that. Well, finally, I was getting to the point where I was going to be driving it. So I got all the lowdown on what I was supposed to do and not supposed to do. Being aware of your location. There was a place on my grandpa's brother's farm that could wash out. You could flip the tractor over if you're not paying attention. So, and not, the big one was don't push the clutch in going down a hill. That grandpa knew too many people who just didn't quite make it. And so I was out in the field one day and I was on the harrow, pulling the harrow, and I'd been on there for maybe about an hour. Apparently I got distracted or wasn't paying attention like I should have been. And I'd gotten to the end of the row. But I'd gotten a little ways into the end of the row. So I thought I still had plenty of time, and so I turned the tractor around and I hear this bad noise. And I knew what it was, so I clutched it immediately and ducked underneath the steering wheel. Well, the harrow didn't quite flip over, but it was climbing pretty good, so I had to get my grandpa on. We fought with it for a while, but we got it back down. But another thing we weren't supposed to do, don't pop the clutch, which I did good at, except for the little farm C. It's a small tractor. I enjoyed bringing the front end up every once in a while. Now, of course, I didn't do that in front of Grandpa. And sometimes when you'd be plowing with it, if it'd been dry out, the ground was pretty tough, and it'd bring it up anyway. And I just let it ride out until we got into softer soil. But the story I want to talk about that was really stupid was I was at my grandpa's brother's place. It was a farm of 80 acres about 3 miles north of grandpa's place. And it was a Friday afternoon, so when I got back to grandpa's, I was going to jump my car and leave. I don't know how old I was. Could have been anywhere from 17 to 20. Old enough to know better, but I did it anyway. So when I pull out, there's a little gravel road. You come to an intersection, and then there's a long dirt road, and then another gravel road. And there's a pond right away on that dirt road. And I always wondered why people never fish there. So when I get up that little hill and get to the top of it, right when I'm going to look over to just see if there was somebody there, which I knew there wouldn't be, I pushed the clutch in. I had this all planned out. I was going to do it. I don't know why. And I went from probably 15 mile an hour to what felt like 200 in a matter of seconds. And I look over, and there are 7 to 8 people fishing over there. Well, they were. They stopped and turned around to see who the idiot was on the tractor. And there's no houses close enough to really walk, so I knew they had to have drove. And sure enough, at the end of the bottom of the hill were 3 cars. And you can't pull off. You have to park on the dirt road. And I thought, oh, now I've got to move the tractor over even farther. And I thought, well, I got it positioned just right. I should be fine. Famous last words. Not too long after, my tractor started doing this. Well, I was hauling an empty wagon, and it was all over the place. I thought, well, I still think I'm okay, as long as it don't get any worse. Well, it did. Now the back tires are sliding, and I'm real close to the cars. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to total out 3 cars, a wagon, and a tractor. And Grandpa's not going to be very happy. So I'm right beside the first car, and I'm just holding on, just waiting for the crash. I'm holding on, and all of a sudden I'm starting up the hill. tractor slowing up. And I turned around and didn't hit anything. So I waited until I was way under the speed, let the clutch out, and kept going. And when I got home, I heard back to Grandpa's. I did the right thing and didn't say a word and left. So that was my foolish thing. And like I said, just one of hundreds. Now we're going to look at a story of a foolish man in the Bible named Nabal. If you look at Strong's H5037, it shows that the name means fool, but it's actually pronounced Nabal. We'll just say Nabal for the fun of it here. So if you'll turn to 1 Samuel 25 and starting in verse 2, it says, "Now there was a man in Maon whose business was in Carmel, and the man was very rich, had 3,000 sheep and 1,000 goats, and he was shearing his sheep in Carmel. The name of the man was Nabal, and the name of his wife was Abigail, and she was a woman of good understanding and beautiful appearance. But the man was harsh and evil in his doings. He was of the house of Caleb. When David heard in the wilderness that Nabal was shearing his sheep, David sent 10 young men, and David said to the young men, 'Go to Carmel and go to Nabal and greet him in my name. And this you shall say to him who lives in prosperity, peace be to you, peace to your house, and peace to all that you have. Now I've heard that you have shearers, your shepherds were with us, and we did not hurt them, nor was there anything missing from them. All the while they were in Carmel. Ask your young men, and they will tell you. Therefore, let my young men find favor in your eyes, for we come on a feast day. Please give whatever comes to your hand to your servants and to your son David.'" It's just not an ordinary day, but David was asking. They share his tithe abundance for a feast day. In verse 9, "So when David's young men came, they spoke to Nabal according to all these words in the name of David, and waited. Then Nabal answered David's servant and said, 'Who is David? Who is the son of Jesse? There are many servants nowadays who break away from his master. Shall I then take my bread and my water and my meat that I've killed for my shearers and give it to the men who I do not know where they are from?'" So this was the ultimate ingratitude. Instead of being thankful for the protection, this foolish Nabal turned on them and basically called them runaway slaves. So David's young men turned on their heels and went back. And they came and told all these words. Then David said to his men, "Every man gird on his sword." So every man girded on his sword, and David also girded on his sword. And about 400 men went with David, and 200 stayed with the supplies. This lack of thankfulness infuriated David, and he started to prepare his young men for war. But not everyone in Nabal's household was foolish as the master. One young man went to Abigail, who was of good understanding, to inform her of the foolishness of her husband. Verse 14. Now one of the young men told Abigail, Nabal's wife, saying, "Look, David sent messengers from the wilderness to greet our master, and he reviled them. But the men were very good to us, and we were not hurt. nor did we miss anything as long as we accompanied them. When we were in the fields, they were a wall to us both day and night, or night and day. All that time we were with them keeping the sheep. Now therefore, know and consider that you will do, for harm is determined against our master and against all the household. For he is such a scoundrel, and one cannot speak to him. Even his servant knew what kind of person Nabal was. Then Abigail made haste and took 200 loaves of bread, 2 skins of wine, 5 sheep already dressed, 5 seahs of roasted grains, 100 clusters of raisins, and 200 cakes of figs, and loaded them on a donkey. And she said to her servants, "Go on before me, see, I am coming after you." But she did not tell her husband Nabal. Verse 20. So it was as she rode on the donkey that she went down under the cover of the hill, and there was David and his men coming down toward her, and she met them. Now David had said, "Surely in vain I have protected all that this fellow has in the wilderness, so that nothing was missed in all of his belongings to him, and he has paid me evil for good. May God do so, and more also, to the enemies of David, if I leave one male of all who belong to him by morning light." Now when Abigail saw David, she dismounted quickly from the donkey, fell on her face before David, and bowed down to the ground. So she fell at his feet and said, On me, O my Lord, on me let this iniquity be. And please let your maidservant speak in your ears and hear the words of your maidservant. Please let not the Lord regard this scoundrel Nabal, for as his name is, so is he. Nabal is his name, and folly is with him. But I, your maidservant, do not see the young man or the Lord whom you sent. Now therefore, my Lord, as the Lord lives, and as your soul lives, since the Lord has held you back from coming to bloodshed, and from avenging yourself and your own hand, now then, let your enemies and those who seek harm from my Lord be as Nabal. And now this present shall be which your maidservant has brought to my Lord. Let it be given to the young man who follow the Lord. Please forgive the trespass of your maidservant, for the Lord will certainly make my Lord an enduring house, because my Lord fights the battles of the Lord, and evil is not found in you throughout your days. Her next statement lets you know that who David was and why he was fleeing for his life was certainly known among all of Israel. Yet a man has risen to pursue you and seek your life, but the life of my Lord should be bound in the bundle of the living with the Lord God and the lives of your enemies. He shall sling out as from the pockets of a sling, and it shall come to pass when the Lord has done for my Lord accounting to all the good that he has spoken concerning you, and has appointed you ruler over Israel, that there will be no grief to you, nor offense of the heart of my Lord, either that you have shed blood without cause, or that my Lord has avenged himself, but whether the Lord has dealt well with my Lord, then remember your maidservant. Then David said to Abigail, Blessed is the Lord God of Israel, who sent you this day to meet me, and blessed is your advice, and blessed are you, because you have kept me this day from coming to bloodshed and from avenging myself with my own hand. For indeed, as the Lord God of Israel lives, you have kept me back from hurting you unless you had hurried to meet me. Surely by morning light no males would have been left to Nabal. So David received her hand which she had brought him, and said to her, Go up to your house. See, I have heeded your voice and respected your person. So God does respect thankfulness. In the next verse, we see that Nabal paid the price for his foolishness. Verse 36. Now Abigail went to Nabal, and there he was, holding a feast in his house, like the feast of a king. And Nabal's heart was merry with him, for he was very drunk. Therefore she told him nothing, little or much, until morning light. So it was in the morning, when the wine had gone from Nabal, and his wife told him these things, that his heart died within him, and he became like a stone. Then it happened about 10 days that the Lord struck Nabal, and he died. The word fool or fools occurs 360 times in the scriptures, and foolish is over 52 times. If you'll want to turn to Proverbs 10:14, it's just a short verse. Wise men lay up knowledge, but the mouth of the foolish is near destruction. And see, Romans 1:21. Because that when they knew God, they glorified him not as God, neither were thankful, but because vain in their imaginations and their foolish heart were darkened. Lack of thankfulness shows a lack of faith in God and his bounty towards us. Be careful to always give thanks, so our hearts do not become darkened like fools and vain enough to believe there is no God. So in conclusion, just remember these two things. Don't push the clutch in on a tractor while going downhill, and don't be a thankless Nabal.